Welcome to Pario magazine, where I chat with individuals who have a desire to create. Today I am joined by the incredibly talented videographer who has helped elevate the Australian wrestling scene over the last few years. Welcome to Pario magazine, Ben Anderson.
Thank you for having me. That's such a lovely intro. You've warmed my heart with that one.
My
I appreciate
pleasure.
that. This is actually the first time we've properly met, by the way.
Yeah,
And
like I've
we've
seen each other around shows all the time and never just had the chance to sit down and chat properly.
oh yeah,
Especially
I've
with,
shoved a camera in your face too.
that's true. That's also true.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Big Fudge is to blame for that one, not me. But yeah.
Yep. The joys of COVID too. Like I can't remember the last show I actually got to go to. I think it was one of the PWA Academy shows.
Wow. Wow. How we
Yeah.
was like full crowd or like slowly starting to bring
No,
people
it
back
was
in
the full crowd one, and then since then
whole hog.
I was meant to come up to the last show, and then there was like that second outbreak, and I was like, this
Yeah.
is a bit risky for me, so I just pulled the pin on that one. But
Yeah,
I've got
it's
my
not
tickets
cool.
for the Metro, so I'll be at the Metro.
Oh, look out. That's gonna be wild. Yeah.
So yeah, we're here today to chat about your journey as a filmmaker and videographer, in particular in regards to your work with the Australian wrestling scene and PWA. Before we dive into that sort of story, are you able to give us a quick intro as to who Ben Anderson is when he isn't shoving a camera in people's faces?
Oh, that's a bit lazy, I'll be honest. As you can see, got a few records behind me. I do love records. That's sort of just music in general. I don't know, just I love creative things. It's sort of like most people in the arts love anything that comes to do comes with art in general. My day to day is often wrestling. Well, wrestling on the weekends. That's the big one. Usually, most of my weekends are gone from that. I do a lot of teaching and teaching assistant stuff at the National Film School afters, bloody in the middle of Sydney. A lot of travel.
Yep.
I often come home to here in the Blue Mountains where I am now, my family home. I've been allowed back over the other side of the river for the first time in 3 weeks after it was definitely the bridge was well under the water. And then lately I've been working on a movie, which has been time consuming. I've had only mere seconds between jobs at the minute, so you've caught me on a good day. You've caught me on one of my days off, which is good. Otherwise, it is trying to get more than 6 hours sleep and getting through the day on a myriad of things.
The the joys of pursuing creative passions. That's like a 24-hour job.
Oh yeah, big time, big time. And then when you clock off from the actual physical work, you're thinking about it. You're worrying about what's going to come up next. I've got a weekend from hell coming up. I can't wait for. We're managing to do 2 streams in 24 hours this weekend, which is going to be absolutely hectic. With our first ever outsourced PWA Studios outsourced live stream at a powerlifting competition. So we're going to give that a go on Sunday morning with the brisk call time of 6 a.m. after a
Ooh.
wrestling show finished the night before. Uh, yeah, it's
Ooh.
going to be great. Yeah, and then we're doing a test day for that. It's all happening. Got a promo shoot on Sunday after the stream as well with the aforementioned Big Fudge. It's all coming. It's all coming up, bloody Millhouse.
Very busy. So were you stuck in the city because of the floods, or?
I was stuck. Stuck is, I guess, not too much of a it's a strong word. My partner lives in Cronulla. My wonderful partner, Emily, housed me. Uh, became homeless for a very very long period of time. There was a particular period actually because we all know out here when it's going to go over, and if it's looking bad, and then Warragamba hasn't even been drained yet, and they say we're going to drain Warragamba, it's like, well, strap in for about a few weeks because that's going to be under the water. Yeah, that bridge is going to be well under the water for a long time. And I was working on this editing job for this feature film, and I was with the directors, and I'm like, well, they're going to open up Warragamba. I've got about 2 hours to decide if I'm going home or if I'm staying out here for a while. And then I looked at everything coming up, and I'm just like, there is no way that I'm going to have to, because the only way out then is 5 hours either to Singleton
Oh,
or going around, because I'm on the Boring Mountain, I'm on the Bilpin side, going around to the Katoomba side and making your way down. And that's, again, like a 4-hour trip. So it's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this much work with that much travel time. I will be getting 4 hours sleep, or 2, I think,
Yep.
probably. So yeah, I got a bit stuck, but in a good way.
Yeah, at least you had somewhere to live during that time rather than
Yeah.
just kind of being like, I'm at work one day and next second I can't get home. What do I do now?
Yeah, it's scary stuff. Like, because I've just been back as well, and my God, there's just the smell of the like town, just because there's so much stagnant water around and there's so much mold in this house. I've been cleaning. I've actually found some wonderful treasures that I might show you as well of the old days of PWA. I found us cleaning through my drawers. Um, but it's just been a crazy time out here, and it's like, but the fact that we can still get here is quite impressive. It came down a lot quicker than we expected. But last year it was a full landslide, and there was no way out. This became a landlocked area, where they had to helicopter in supplies and everything. It's just been, this one wasn't too bad in comparison.
That's lucky. Was your
Yeah,
house all good?
yeah, I'm on a mountain, so
Ah,
it's
sweet.
fine. There's the only way to the mountain is the flat bit before it that usually gets absolutely inundated with water.
Well, that's lucky
But
then.
yeah, very thankful compared to a lot of other people, and a lot of other people have been very heavily affected. It's even, it's not even the people that get hit by the water, like by the rivers themselves. It's the people who have, a flat area of farmland for kilometers that just gets totally covered in water and all their crops die. It's all those sorts of things that just sort of like, could be much worse.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been scary. Scary times though.
yeah, yeah. Torrential.
So on to the more positive side of things with your work. When did you sort of first discover this passion for video and filmmaking?
Oh, it's a bit embarrassing, but it was the depths of early 2000s YouTube Lego stop motion is where it all came to fruition for me. Uh, getting my little Legos out, and because I only had a stills camera back in the day when I was quite young. I didn't have anything that did video, so I was like, how can I do video with pictures? And did a bunch of stop motions. Big wrestling mark back then. Loved my wrestling. The things started to combine. Yeah, and then I sort of just took it seriously coming out of high school. Did a couple major works. Bought my first video camera, which was a little Nikon DSLR, and early on, I thought I was into animation. That's with the stop motion, stuff. I went into I did a degree in 3D animation at AIE, which I did while I was at high school. And basically, that confirmed to me that that's not what I want to do. I would like to be on set with real people, and I don't really want to live in a cave for the rest of my life, moving 3-dimensional versions of things on a digital format. So yeah, and then I did a short film after coming in English Extension 2. That's where a lot of people find it. There's a few people in wrestling who did the same thing as me as well. And then yeah, it just sort of was like that's it. That's no other option. A lot of people have a plan B, and I'm like, I'm not getting one. I refuse. My plan B is where exactly I'm going to land in film. My plan A is somewhat of directing aspects and cinematography. Plan B is maybe somewhere else like editing, and all these sorts of things. I'm sort of figuring that part out. But yeah, then went on to the Australian Film, Television, Radio School, which is where I now am employed to teach young able-minded individuals with my crazy thoughts and processes on things. And yeah, and then I guess honestly, I think I lucked out with where I ended up and what I've done. I know that there's people who hate the term luck, but in terms of just the amount of opportunities that I've been given, especially fresh out of film school, I'm very, very lucky
Yep.
to be doing as much work as I have been. Yeah.
Were those early stop motion films, were they like Lego wrestling films?
They were Lego Star Wars that then delved into Lego wrestling, and then into physical wrestling. I wasn't as good as it. I saw a couple of YouTube videos of guys because there's more limbs to move, in a wrestling figure. Like there's a lot more going on there to make it look good, rather than an arm coming up and a head turning on a Lego figurine that's basically got 3 angles of movement and you're done. But yeah, I tried a few wrestling moves with them. There was a lot of guns and dismemberment as well with the Lego figurines. Didn't want to damage my wrestling figures. I don't know where my wrestling figures have gone. I know where my Lego ones have gone, but I don't. I went to look for my wrestling ones the other day, thinking they might be worth something, and I've no idea where they've gone. I've got some random figurines like the Hurricane and Sabu and an Ultimo Dragon one. That was pretty cool. I didn't see that anywhere after I got that one.
Yeah, that's a cool
But
one.
yeah, it was like the one WWE one who did the blue one. Yeah, but it's sort of a very yeah, I guess you learn a lot of processes when it's so simplified like that you take with you as you get older in terms of filmmaking.
Yep.
The principles.
Do those films still exist anywhere, or are they personal archives
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think the computer they're on died, but I will say this once: they do exist deep on a unlisted YouTube account that will never be resurrected. And I will say this once, and that is it. Not even my girlfriend has seen them, and I refuse. And that's coming from someone that on our first date, I showed her Big Fudge promos, and she will love to tell that story of how embarrassing that is. But that's one that I've never pulled out to anyone.
Okay, so now everybody's going to be searching on YouTube to try and find these movies.
Yeah, there's also a video of me somewhere when I was probably, I'd say 10, 12, oh no, about 11, 13-ish, where my friend vlogged our trip to a PWA show. That's out there somewhere, and it's not been taken down, and no one's found it yet. And that's what I'm saying something now, is I'm wondering if anyone will find it to see me in my youth being really embarrassing and cringe. I've not actually watched it back in about a decade, so let's hope I don't say anything too questionable. I don't think I say anything at all. I think I just sit there while these two guys talk. I don't know.
They're the ones saying all the questionable things.
Yeah. I'll politically distance myself from them at this moment as well.
Okay, awesome. I hope people tag that in the comments of this now. So then once you sort of started to go down this path of filmmaking, who would you say have been your influences and inspirations?
Oh, geez, that's a big question. In terms of people I haven't met, a lot of action filmmakers have been my biggest influences in terms of, just like... I mean, when I was a kid as well, the reason that I went into wrestling, and I think a lot of people who sort of find that bridge from films and things they like that are in the mainstream to wrestling is often action cinema for a lot of people. There's also the people that come from like physical stuff like UFC, dance, that sort of thing. But I was one of the people who loved. I was a big Jackie Chan fan in my day. And action cinema, and then basically those films that I watched when I was a kid are a big influence. Especially a lot of the wild 90s stuff that sort of creeps into some of my camera work, cheeky Dutch angles, don't ever lever your tripod ever. That's a silly idea.
Yep.
Yeah, The Matrix is a big one, the Wachowskis. I'd say more recently, Gareth Evans. I love his action filmmaking, the director of the Raid films.
Yep.
I love his filmmaking just because he does a lot with a little, and that's a lot of where I've gotten my influence from, especially now is, those films were made on under $1 million each. You wouldn't know it. In comparison to the Expendables, it's, 30 million, 40 million, $50 million films. So yeah, those ones, but, writers, especially like, the writer, Graham Linehan, the writer of the IT Crowd, is a big influence. I would say as well, there's also a bunch of cinematographers. I mean, everyone loves Roger Deakins. He does the prettiest films you'll ever see in your life. Denis Villeneuve, the director of, Dune, what else has he done? Bloody Arrival, Blade Runner, all of those things. Yep. Just a lot of those people, that I haven't met in my time. But in terms of people I've met, there's a few, especially a mentor, Simeon Bryan, a cinematographer that I met at film school, one of my lecturers. He's gone to a few PWA shows too. He loves them. He's brought his wife to the last one. He's like, that was sensational. I saw them mark it out to Big Fudge, and I'm just like, this is brilliant. This is a full circle moment for me. I'd say that's Sim. A few people I've met at film school along the way. Peers as well have, like, just my peers in general. Have really influenced me as well. You learn a lot from the people you work with. Yeah, it's it's all a bit here, there, and everywhere.
Well, yeah, it sounds like, yeah, the action directors, that's like the perfect fit to then bring over to wrestling. And from the sounds of it, you've been a PWA fan for a long time. So how did that partnership to then become the video guy for them?
Video guy. I'll show you something I found actually. I was going through my drawers and I was cleaning something out. I found this, number one. I found that. There's some people on that have
Oh,
done
wow.
some things. Yeah, that's Belfield RSL. There's Liverpool Masonic Centre.
Yep.
Um, yeah, that's like the days that I was a fan. I've also found this DVD of Call to Arms, which is, when you open it, I realised, pretty sure signed by Matt Diamond. My memory serves me correctly. That's Matt Diamond's signature. Could
Yeah,
also be
that
Robbie
looks like a
Eagles. It's
Matt.
one of those two.
That looks
It
like a
looks
Matt
like Matt. That
Diamond
looks like
signature. That looks like
Matt
Matt.
to me. I've also, yeah, it looks like Matt to me. It was one of the two of them. Because there's an 8x10 somewhere else. So that was 2010, 11, 12. And these were the people that I was like, I was a big ECW fan when I was younger. It was a bit edgy, ooh. Young kid watching some people, bleed everywhere and go through tables. And I went to a show that was the show called the Red October, I think. It was, like 2010. Some Harley Jackson put Ryan Eagles through a table covered in thumbtacks. And I'm like, this is incredible. There was like one Facebook ad that came up that just said, this is, there's local wrestling, which I didn't. Everyone has that story that loves wrestling. I didn't know it was here. Everyone has that story. And I had it when I was like 10, 12, roughly. And yeah, and so then for my birthday for about 3 years in a row, I went to these shows. And then my best mate's birthday was in November as well. So we'd often go October, November, get 2 shows in a row, get the stories that were going there. And then I grew up, where you grow out of wrestling for a little bit. And then it's got its claws into you and it starts to crawl right back. And then as I got a bit older, I'm like, I really do miss wrestling. Like, it was more for the nostalgia. Like, started playing the games again. This was probably mid-film school, I'd say. I was probably about 20, I'd say. 19, 20. It was starting to sort of kick back in, and I was kind of like ironically liking wrestling again. Remember that time that wrestler did that stupid thing, and like, talking to friends about it, and then it just kind of, I was like, you know what, I miss it. And second year film school, we had a documentary semester. And so I was like, you know what, I wonder how these guys are going. I wonder how these guys and girls are going with PWA, because it's been a long time and I've not talked to them, and I reckon we could get access. And straight away, they were just like, come film something. I think it was the show before the Star. Oh no, it's the show before the first Will Ospreay show. Was it was the Rudy Hill one.
Yep.
Yeah, the show before the Paddington one. And Robbie was like, please come and film at the next one, because it's going to be big. And he knew it was going to be big. And at the time as well, this documentary wasn't just for me, it was for ABC iView as well. They were doing a cross promotion with the school. So there was some stakes involved. And I was sort of like, I can't, there's a deadline. I can't do the next one. It has to be the show in this production window. And so it was genuinely a beautiful documentary. I'm so glad we did it. It was like a bit of a love letter. And then it just kind of exploded from there. And I basically got in contact with, if anyone wants to thank anyone involved in PWA for any sort of video work from me, that sounds arrogant, but I guess if there's one person to thank, it would be Big Fudge, because this documentary was about to go places and get sent off. And there was a shot in the background where he was in the background lifting a ring without a mask on. And I said, is this cool to air? Because I knew that's a bit, it's a big deal. That's like, you really don't do that. And he was like, yep, no worries. And at the end of the message, I said, look, if there's any video stuff that you guys need, I've just seen you guys, and I want this to be big. I can see there's potential here. I want to help. A lot of these people were my idols when I was a kid, like I was jumping off the trampoline pretending I was Matt Diamond versus, a mate who pretended he was Robbie Eagles. These guys had a big effect on me. And he's like, yeah, actually, I got a thing coming up for a New Ipo Rumble where we try and win an award for the best promo. And I was like, count me in. And then we did the Ricky Fudge Rumble promo, and the rest is history. soon the Star Show was coming up. They knew that they had to get something, had to do a lot of work for that. So then I got messaged again. Everyone was like, who did you use for that promo for Newey? Did about 2 or 3 for that. At that point, Jax had also sort of naturally emerged in the video department. He taught himself everything. What a superstar. He's incredible. We come from 2 separate worlds, but we're kind of similar in our goals and what we want to do. And it was just such a natural progression. And then, he's doing the hype stuff. I'm doing the more narrative stuff. He's now doing a lot more of the narrative stuff as well. He's not just doing hype stuff. We're all sort of doing a whole bunch of things, but that's sort of just how it naturally progressed. And then after doing promos for a while, I got a message from PWA people, basically the most stressful message I've ever received, which was just one sentence that was, "Do you know how to live stream?" And I was like, "No, but I reckon I can ask someone who does.
I can probably work it out."
Yeah, and it's like, you've got 3 months to figure it out. And so then we taught ourselves how to live stream. I am indebted to a lot of people for helping set that up. Most of them are still working with us as well. The main one being Aiden Jessup. He is an absolute machine gun in terms of, we would have no sound anywhere as good without him. He has engineered basically the entirety of our product since 2019, 18, I'd say. It's always been him. It's never not been him. He's got the keys to the kingdom. He's bringing some more people in, like Bethany Stewart is our first other person who's sort of started to come in that he's been training. But basically, he's keys to the kingdom on that stuff. And then, all these people just started, we started bringing people in and people that I've worked with at film school and on films, and we're a little production company now. It's unreal.
Was that surreal to then start working with PWA sort of on a consistent basis, given that you were that big fan growing up?
Oh, a lot of these moments, a lot of these pinch me moments. They kept coming constantly. There was a moment where Matt Diamond and I had just there's a few moments where you just sort of go, wow. And there was a moment where I was just hanging out with Matt Diamond at a party, and I was like, this would have killed me if I was 12. I would have died. I would have had a heart attack and died at this moment. There was just a couple of moments. I keep having these moments of just being like, that's crazy, but it's so natural, it's just, they're mates now. But when I was a kid, it's crazy. The fact that I found a video of from one of those shows where Jack Bonza threw a shovel out of the ring. It nearly hit my mum. And I was like, I work with that guy all the time now. And that's crazy, And here I am, popping this video on Facebook like it's the coolest thing I've ever seen when I was a kid. I'm like, it's funny. I said it to her. Like, it's funny how the times change. I've got a Facebook memory of a dude bashing another person with a shovel and and now I work for them. It's surreal. And then because wrestling's such a small community and it's so tight, you meet a lot of people very quickly. You work your way through it very quickly. It was within so I graduated film school at the start of 2019, which was the year I went full time properly with wrestling. That year that is still, I reckon to this day, probably the greatest year of my life, to be honest. That year I had started this full time, done streams. I had done the documentary with Wahlberg. I had done a bunch of different things. I had gone to WrestleMania. I had met a myriad of WWE people. I had worked for the WWE very briefly to do a thing with Mark Henry. I had worked for New Japan. I had met Abyss. I was in a locker room alone with Abyss reviewing a match whilst filming that documentary. And I'm like, what is going on? This is just insane. And it was so much so quickly that I'm still digesting that year to this day. The fact that everything happened at such an incredible rate like that is just insane because everything's just moving so quickly. And I was just blown away. I'm like, this is it. I can't get any better than this. And everyone's so appreciative and beautiful and thankful that it's such a great environment to be in. Um, it's crazy. Just the trajectory is insane, and we're only going up from there. We're trying to challenge ourselves every day to make new things and do wild things, and yeah, surreal. Honestly,
Yeah,
surreal.
I have a similar experience with Jack Bonza. I have a Facebook memory that pops up every year of him and Kyle Fletcher landing on me in the front row. And then I interviewed
Yeah.
Jack Bonza. I was like, this is weird. It's just
It's
strange.
it's it's surreal because they're just so open and receptive to it's that's what makes wrestling so beautiful and so specific. It is built off fan engagement. There's nothing like it in the world that is so married to its fan base in terms of just how wrestling can't exist without them, and they are so thankful for that. What I do, I wouldn't exist without the wrestling fans as well, and it's like the fact that they're so accessible to be involved with their fans. It's a beautiful thing. You get that nowhere else. You don't see a movie and then get 8x10s of Tom Cruise after you watch it at Hoyt's. It's it's different. It's special.
And then, as someone from sort of the outside looking in on those live streams, I never would have picked that you only had 3 months to work all of that out. How was that process transitioning to live streaming?
A bit of a meltdown, a bit costly as well. Yeah, the company had to invest a fair bit of money because the gear is so expensive. And there's a lot hanging on that. When you're like, this is a gamble, this is something that we're testing. We really did get. We were very lucky in terms of, especially for me, I think that we were very fortunate. I won't say lucky, I'll say fortunate to have a lot of the steps covered for us as we went. The back end is quite complex. I'm sure if you've ever live streamed, especially it's a lot simpler now, but for such a scale, you've got to know how it's getting out there, and that's being managed, and that's a whole job. And with OVO at the time and with Fight TV now, is we have that back end done remotely, which was great. That's the bit that I didn't even begin to fathom how that works. And it's basically like, as long as that thing gets a video input and an audio input, we'll do the rest. So that's a lot of it off the shoulders. But so much of it is figuring out logistically how to achieve something in terms of cabling, gear. Back then we were because we could only afford the base unit. So much of the camera gear was donated by operators and by people, and we are so indebted to those people. We are a guy named Tamatia Kohu, who is he works does a lot of VFX work, and he's done a lot of VFX work for a few promos that we've done. He still to this day is donating gear to us. Like that we're using every single show. A guy named Josh Lee and his fiance Alyssa, cinematography power couple. They did a full year's worth of shows, traveling to Newey, traveling everywhere, and donating so much of their camera equipment to us to get us through those shows. And Josh Lee is the guy that basically, his family does a lot of live streaming in basically in their church environment, and so he had basically filled me in on, here's how we do it, and here's a lot of the things that you need. And just from that experience, that's how we learned so much. It was balls to the wall, to be honest. The first show we didn't actually live stream. That wasn't us. That was an outsourced crew, for us to basically see how it was done. And I basically shadowed them. And then from there, with the next one, our first ever live stream was the first ever Crowbar show, which I to this day haven't watched back because I would cringe. I mean, it might be nice to watch as like here's how far we've come, but so much of me would be afraid of that show to watch it because of how many rules we would have broken. Because we were figuring it out. That's what I mean. Is we taught ourselves everything. We've figured out a lot. We've learned a lot from other places. We've really starting to get it now. From the amount of gear that we have to make our lives easy, but we didn't make it easy for ourselves early on. But the first ever Black Label big show was All Eyes on Troy, and the response to that was incredible on Twitter as well. I know that we got a lot wrong on that show as well, and for a lot of the shows after. But like so much of what we thrived off was reading feedback from of a lot of people on Twitter and a lot of people that were, you know, responsive to our shows. Because otherwise, you know, if we're doing it and there's no, we're doing all this work and there's nothing kind of coming back, it would be much harder. But yeah, it was special. Yeah.
Was that transition to live streaming, do you think that's been the hardest thing to overcome since you started working with PWA?
Yeah, definitely. The I am almost it's so natural and second nature for me to be in a narrative environment. You know, like you do your pre-production, you do your production, you do your post-production. There's so much ability, you know, so much of what you find is in editing and in post. And as soon as you get to that live environment, there are no second chances. There are no, you know, you have to spend so much time, especially the day of, making that stream foolproof and making the space foolproof, laying all the cable down, getting everything ready so you can just autopilot from a desk and not need to get up again. It's daunting. Takes a strong stomach. It takes a lot of, you know, a lot of the people that we bring in, you know, so much of the crew that I get comes from their ability to handle stress, because it's not a regular film environment. It is so specialized. It is, you know, we've had so many things happen where you need thick skin. We've had shows where we had a thing called an easy rig, which is like a backpack that came over, and we had, you know, it's a big unit that holds a camera for you, and it was like fans didn't love that because it was in the way of their view, and they pay VIP tickets. And there was one show where they threw balloons at one of my camera operators, you know, like those sorts of things. And I'm like, I understand that they're frustrated as well, but it's like, I'm like, you know, we're learning as well. It's just, you've got to have thick skin,
Yep.
especially with feedback, especially online, especially everywhere. And to be receptive to that as well, and not be dismissive is also, you know, it requires a lot, but it is daunting. Probably the most daunting part of the job, I would say.
Yeah, it's not a regular film set where if someone stumbles or misses a cue, it's a cut. We'll go back and run that again. It's we just missed it.
Yeah. There's been a few. We've had a few horrors. I think the scariest one we ever had was, there was a show. Was it the Cancel show? It was one of the streams that we did without crowd. It's a show that we've lost now, actually, because we never had a backup of it. But Big Fudge did the opening of that show. I don't know if you remember. There was like a in-ring promo, and we had pre-recorded that in an office where he was, you know, the sanitation commissioner, and he was giving this, you know, wash your hands, make sure everyone's, you know, look after each other. That was how the show was going to start. Was this video package of him essentially in an electoral office with the Aussie flag behind him. We filmed it that morning. It refused to play. It just did not play. We still to this day don't know why it didn't do that. So there's these awkward shots of empty seats because they're doing that as a bit of a joke.
Just like, let's just
Rose
fill the space.
Yeah, because we're like, Rose and Gail, like, it's a sold out crowd, and you know, it's like we're going to this message of Fudge. You know, Fudge has his message for us, we've been told, and it's not coming up. It's not playing. And I've just pointed at him because I could see him across the room, and I've just pointed at the ring. The mask's gone on, he's gone out there, and he's delivered the promo, word for word perfect, and saved us. And then tells me afterwards, he's like, I wasn't really happy with my delivery in the pre-record, so thank you for that. And I'm like, what do you mean? Thank you? Because I wouldn't have known what to do there. We would have just had to have moved on after awkwardly mentioning something.
Yeah, it would have just been like 30 seconds of empty crowd. Let's just go to the next bit.
Let's go to the first match, I guess. You know, the amount of times, especially like so much of that stuff as well, especially when we have so many breaks lately, it's been hard because we get in rhythm. And when show for show, we get in rhythm, all the little things we're aware of between shows. And I remember our first show back after the first big show, which was the show with the Prefects Playground Brawl. it was a crazy show because of how much payoff was happening on it. There was so many big storylines and big moments that were happening on that show. I think it was back in Black Label. That show, Jackson and I to this day, just that was traumatic because it had been so long. All of the small things just we'd forgotten or just weren't second nature to us. Things were taking too long. We had so many tech issues. You know, it was you know, we got out of that show and just collapsed. And it was, you know, there's been times in Melbourne, like the Melbourne MCW show we did, I just blanked and I was on the wrong channel on my radio and I let JT stand in the ring for 40 seconds waiting for a cue that I just wasn't giving him. You know, like there's so many of these things where you'll have a great show and then that's the one thing you'll remember.
Yep.
It's the thing you got wrong. You know, you won't forget all the brilliant camera shots that you get. You'll forget the ones you missed. So you remember the ones you missed, you know. That's the stuff that sticks with you. It's so much of it is just you get pretty war torn pretty quick. You know, yeah.
On a personal level, how much do you think your talents have helped sort of elevate PWA and the Australian wrestling scene?
Oh, so that's a tricky one. I think personally, I think I know that I've helped, but I don't ever want to say that at any point me or specifically or Jax, you know, we are the quintessential reason as to why, you know, Aussie wrestling's exploded or that PWA in particular has done well. Because everything to me felt so natural in terms of progression. You know, the people that were running the company really had an understanding of story and how to run a business and how to grow a business. We just kind of fell into the lap at the right time. And I understand it's important, but there's been moments. There was a moment at because I don't really like thinking that way. I don't really think like I said, I don't really like going.
Yeah.
I'm the guy.
Yeah, it's a team
you know.
effort.
It really is a team effort. But I will never forget Coliseum, the 2019 one, because that was the most work we ever put into a show and anything. I think ever. You know, we'd thrown out so much content. You know, Jax had done so much. We'd prepared 2 days plus a fan day in the middle in terms of video content as well. There was so much work going into it. And Wahlberg did his big speech at the end and thanking all the wrestlers. And I'm like, I'm so proud of these people. That's why I'm doing it, is I'm so like in awe of these performers and what they can do. And I just believe in them so much. And Jax is the same. We want them to succeed and we do it to help them succeed. And there was this big speech and I'm like, of course, like brilliant. You know, like I'm glad that everyone's sharing this moment with Maddie and how much growth we've had as a company. And then, I don't know what I've told many people this, Rose puts the headset down, you know, and he grabs me and he says, you know, I'll never forget it. He says, this is you. This is yours as well. And he's like, we wouldn't be here without you. And it just hit me. And I just started bawling and I couldn't stop crying. I just could not stop crying. Every camera operator that came up, I was going to thank them for the massive weekend that they put in. As soon as they hugged me, I started crying again. I was just like, I just couldn't stop crying. And it was like, that was the moment where I was like, yeah, I guess, you know, like everyone's doing their part and, you know, I'm one of those people and my team, every person on my team is one of those people as well. I'm so indebted to them because I would have nothing. I wouldn't be here having this conversation with you if it wasn't for them. You know, because I can't run a live stream. I can't operate every camera and sound mix and do everything at the same time. You know, I can't be every part of a promo. My favorite promos that we've ever done have been, you know, 4 or 5 crew members that have always been the same ones that have come to help. You know, these are the people that I'm so proud of. And it's yeah, it all hit me. It all hit me in that moment. And, you know, I was like, yeah, you know, maybe it is a big effort. We are very, very hardworking people and we, you know, we keep it going and try our best and strive. Jax and I strive to do things differently. We come from different angles. He says something, you know, he often says, phrase he uses is "that's very wrestling" as sort of like a critique. You know, like
Yep.
he comes from a wrestling background, that's you know, dives headfirst into film, and knows we want to do something different. We want to do something new with everything that we do as much as possible, whilst taking inspiration from places and things that work. And he says that's very wrestling, you know, and that's when we go, no, let's try it differently, because that's been done a million times. I come from
Yep.
a background of like narrative film. Like, I want to see stuff that's never done in wrestling, because I want to take it from, you know, the worst wrestling steals from wrestling. The best wrestling steals from other stuff. Steals from
Mhm.
TV shows. It steals from performative theater. It steals from, you know, it steals from movies. It steals from Marvel. It steals from, you know, bloody dance even. If I said that already, like, you know, the amount of that sort of stuff. And so much of what I want to take, you know, TikTok even, like that stuff, like it's all, there's a following there for a reason. And if you steal from wrestling, you're only going to ever basically build something that wrestling fans like, or tell you you've seen it before, basically. You know, you want to be original, and originality comes from outside of the bubble. And yeah, so that's where I come from. Jax comes from, also he sees that stuff as well, and he's like, yeah, but he knows the pitfalls that wrestling can fall into, where someone stands in front of a camera and tells you who they're facing, where the event is going to happen, and how much they're going to bash their head in, and also put them over at the same time. It's all those like promo class things, which are great and they work. It's just doing them differently is key to like growing something new and something that gets attention, because, you know, and not all of it works. Not all of it, you know, not all the stuff we try works. Some of it does, some of it doesn't. You know, it's all about feedback.
Yep. Yeah, like it's good to have those key points in the promos, but I've noticed a lot of the PWA stuff is now very cinematic and more like a little mini movie every time there's a big promo, like we've seen with, like you mentioned, the Maddie Warburg documentary series, the Kingsley and Bonza promos, the Lucci promos have been very cinematic as well. Is there a favorite piece of uh, content that you've helped produce for PWA?
Jesus, I kind of felt that question was going to come at some point, and it is an incredibly hard question for me to answer, because I have so many different favorite things for different reasons. Um, and they're usually for what we were trying to do at the time, and if they succeeded. You know, the Warburg documentary is a big one, because of just how much traction that got, and how that still influenced a lot of things to this day. I see it all the time. And because we tried something different, we stole from UFC. Really, we stole from documentary storytelling. We stole from those things. You know, we tried something that was living between kayfabe and shoot, but wasn't quite either. You know, it wasn't, but also trying to make it not totally confused. I'm so proud of that. That really confirmed to me that this is something I want to do. I would say the Bonds Are in the Woods promo, and the Kingsley Crow one with the window, in terms of
Yep.
short things, they are just, those ones were a full blown start to finish like production, you know, like in terms of shot listing, scripting, you know, there was no winging it on those. My wonderful partner Emily built that window from scratch, you know, really last minute. There was, you know, we found a location that was just beautiful for it. I don't know if this is going to be a spoiler, but the snow in the Bonza promo was completely digital. None of that was real whatsoever. That was an absolute feat for me. We'd never challenged ourselves with visual effects before quite like it. And then ironically, it snowed like a month later in that location. It's like, for God's sake. Yeah, I know, unbelievable. That I would say, I am so proud. See, if I really had to pick a favorite, I've got two, and I'm saving them for the end. They were, and for two reasons. The Prefects Playground Brawl is probably the most proud I've ever been of anything, because of just how much faith they put into me to tell the end of the story. that's something I don't ever get to do. I'm usually, what we do is so much of it is telling two acts of a third act that plays out in the ring.
Yep.
And that's what they do so well. So it's never really up to me to be involved in that, other than filming it and capturing it for a live stream. But to be able to give them the opportunity to basically go, here's the culmination of something that's been going for a year or more than a year, and it's entirely on you to do it, and you can tell it like a film. I was like, oh, absolute, like, blown away. And then the amount of work that went into those were big days. That was 2 days of
Oh,
filming.
wow.
With nearly, I think I counted, we had 96 separate shots over 2 days, which is ridiculous, on 3 recording cameras all at once, at a playground where where there was a public playground that we had council permission to shoot on, but then, you know, we had children wanting to come and play on it and then being told they can't, and then they start crying, you know, like, we've got a person jumping off the top going through a table. One of, I think Jimmy Townsend was having surgery on his wrist, so we had to get all of the action done on one day, wait 2 weeks, and then come back and do all the narrative stuff on a separate day. It was an absolute behemoth of a challenge to pull off. And I'm just thrilled with the end result. That's, you know, the fact that everyone resonated with it. You know, I think Jack said when he watched it, he was halfway through and he said, "This is it." And he's like, I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Everything you've done is it's almost been there. It's almost been the coolest thing in Australian wrestling. You know, like, it's been great. It's been wonderful." And he's like, "This is it." He's like, "This is my favorite thing I've ever seen in Australian wrestling." And I'm like, that was such an honor to hear as well. And it was like, yeah, it was halfway through. It wasn't even towards the end.
It wasn't
yet.
even
It was
finished
like,
yet.
no, it was when they did the bit on the spider web. And it was like, yeah, that's it. Just because all the scenes were moving, and, you know, we had a ton of shots. We had huge days. We had, it was crazy. So I'm overwhelmed with that as well. But the other one, and that was really special to me, incredibly special to me, was the International Women's Day documentary, Girls to Fight For, that we did for International Women's Day 2020, I believe. That's something I've been wanting to do for a while. That's something that I had mentioned to Madison Eagles quite a few times. And I had basically decided, I was like, all right, I'm doing it this year. This is the year it's going to happen. I know we've got a lot going on. There was a lot of things that I've been hearing, and things that were kind of like really both beautiful and upsetting to hear, you know, all these different stories. And I was just like, there's nothing that's really this focused and this raw, and just and you know, everything's full, you know, that it's either full kayfabe or it's half there. I'm like, I'm sitting down with these women and I want to just say it. I want to talk about it. I want to say everything that needs to be said. I want them to, I hope that they can trust me with this information as well, you know, because I am, you know, it's you know, it can be quite problematic if you're a male director talking about those sorts of things. There's so many traps you can fall into, which is where I was like, I'm invisible in terms of creating this. I don't exist. This is entirely them. I don't say a word in the documentary. It's just listening, and that's so important. It's just listening. And the response to that was you know, overwhelmingly positive, and I am so thankful for that. I'm so thankful that people watched it, because it is long, but there's a lot that needs to be said. There's a lot that, you know, there's a lot of my goals in terms of you know, as a filmmaker and as a human, in terms of you know, the themes that we cover in that. And in terms of how I align with the company, so much of that in the company and PWA is all about, you know, empowering strong women in an intergender space. And you see it in the booking, you see it in the matches, you see it in everything. It just felt right to come together and just make this, and everyone, you know, there was a really positive response, and then a lot of, you know, harrowing stuff that came out after that was released as well. A couple months later, Speaking Out happened, and a lot of this, yeah, a lot of people reported the same things, and a lot of people, you know, it was just right at that turning point, and I'm, you know, both proud and, you know, it's tragic that it had to be said, but it's, I'm proud that we could say something and say this isn't good enough and we need to change. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
loved that documentary. It was very well done.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. It was, yeah, that was a heavy day as well. That was particularly heavy to, there's so much that we didn't put in. There's so much that we talked about off camera as well that, it's just, yeah, a lot needed to change, and I'm glad things have. But yeah, and that was also a challenge for me physically. That was the sickest I've ever been in my life. Because I said to everyone, we're doing it, it's happening. And it was, I didn't have COVID, but it was right before it got here.
Yep.
And I had the strongest flu I've ever had in my life. And I had the actual raw footage of that interview. I am just going into an absolute bellowing cough between every question I ask, which is probably in hindsight now not the greatest working environment to put them in, but like we had to get it done. We had 1 week, we had everyone in the room. I just was like, I have to pull through and just do it. And then I went into essentially a flu coma for 5 days, and couldn't edit. I was just bedridden. And then I had 48 hours to edit, cut, export, get sound mix, everything done on that documentary. And I slept for maybe 2 hours in that 48 hours just to get it done. It was insane. And then like the internet went down, so I had to drive to Aiden's place, to my sound mixer's place, and get him to mix it, and then napped on the couch, and it was all just, it's crazy. But yeah, I'm so glad we got it out there. Yeah, humbling stuff. But that's a very long answer to your question. I do apologize, but there's those things are, for me, very particular things that I'm super proud of, and I'm proud of everyone that was involved in them.
Are there any sort of other dream projects within wrestling that you have in mind of doing in the future?
Yes, I want to do a when the time is right, which I don't think is now, but sometime. I don't know when. I am destined to do a documentary on Madison Eagles.
Yes, please.
A long one. I'm, even something that is basically married to the history of PWA as well, and exploring both at the same time across 90 minutes, because my God, that woman is just incredible. She's also a big role model to me, and I'm sure everyone else at the company says the same thing, is what a legend. What an absolute legend. And sitting down with her at that Women's Day documentary really confirmed that to me. I was like, I have to do something with this person, because we've got such a big wave of new fans that have absolutely no idea of just how much she's done and how we wouldn't exist without her. So that's a dream project of mine that I want to do. There's all like other little things.
A lot of people's like favorite talents wouldn't exist without her either.
Big time, absolutely massive. She's gone and done it all. The fact that because I brought this up with her, I said I do really want to do this at some point. She knows this isn't me. I'm not gonna put this out there and then hope that it gets a hashtag or something. She knows that I want to do this. It's sort of been, it was maybe going to happen last year or so, but it didn't happen. And but she just told me things. She's like, I often forget the things that I've done. She was just so casual about it. She's like, I got a photo of me training with like Eddie Guerrero and John Cena or something, and I was like, yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? That's a bit much. I didn't
just casually dropping that in the conversation.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I hope I got that right. I could have. That was years ago. She said that to me, so I could have got the actual names wrong. But, and she's, the amount of stuff she's done. What was another real big tell for me as well was when I went to New York for Mania, and I had met Jim Ross's agent at the time. Lovely guy, and he was asking about me because we all kind of ended up, because I went as part of a competition. We all ended up in the hotel that they were staying in. All the wrestlers were staying in, because we were sort of next to it. And the people that got us over there for this competition were like, come up to the bar and we'll chill. So we went there a few nights in a row, and we met a few people. But that was one of the guys, and he was like, you know, like, what are you involved in the company or anything? I just mentioned to him, you know, I work for Pro Wrestling Australia, and I'm sure I assumed that he wouldn't know who we were. And he's like, I'm not too sure of them. I'm like, it's the company that Madison Eagles was heavily involved in, and he just like froze, and he was like, Madison Eagles. He's like, her theme song gives me like chills. How's she doing? And I just like, she had such a massive presence in the States that I think a lot of, I was taken aback by. Everyone was like, what a talent. You know, one of the best wrestlers we've ever seen, etc., etc. You know, it was crazy. And then, you know, it was nuts. The amount of people that just knew. And I'm like, I have to, even though I didn't know any of this, you know, I'm the amount that I am sure I would learn from just sitting and having a conversation and, you know, so I'm like, it has to be a long documentary because there's going to be so much. But
Yeah, it's not going to be a 10, 20-minute documentary, that one.
no, I don't think so. I think it's got to be feature length. So that's why I'm, yeah, back pocketing that one. But for now,
Well, I will be
that's what I'd
keeping
say.
an eye out for that one because I definitely want to see that.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe we'll do a GoFundMe or something and get 1 million people to put $1 million budget into it, and we'll make a bloody movie.
And then you mentioned outside of the world of wrestling, you're still like pursuing filmmaking as well, making movies and stuff. How has that sort of been going alongside the wrestling work?
Good, yeah, good. It's really heated up lately. I would say that I had definitely gotten a bit lax with that. I think so much of my sort of process, I hate that word, it's such a wanky word, but so much of my filmmaking process has been built off the back of doing repetitive, um, you know, somewhat high concept work with promos at times, like just doing these things in such a condensed 2 minutes of, you know, making a scene look like the Crow, doing a scene that, you know, is in the middle of a forest, doing a beer pong thing, you know, doing it, you know, all of this wide range of genres and everything that we have in the world of wrestling. I was so content with that being where I learn a lot from just practice and repetition, and, you know, in terms of editing, directing, cinematography, all of it. Because we're such a small crew, I end up doing so many parts of it. I'm like, I want to get better from repetitive work in that, and I kind of let the filmmaking part outside of wrestling go a bit. And then basically my goal this year was like, I have to, and then towards the end of this year, I'm like, get me on a set that isn't wrestling related. I love wrestling. I got to have a break. I got to not be in charge of everything. I want to be like assistant something or other. I want to be, you know, assistant lighting. I want to be assistant editor. I want to be something where I show up, that's it, and I leave, and I learn from a film set with multiple departments, and I walk away. And then I did a few music videos. I did a few like in camera department. And then I was teaching, assisting a editing class at the film school. And a call out happened from two mates of mine that they had actually shot their documentary with me at Rudy Hill. It was like a lovely little full circle moment again. They have been pursuing a feature film, and it's been funded, it's been shot, it's going wild. And they were like, we need an editor. We haven't actually signed and hired an editor. Put a call out in all of these, you know, a job application. And I just messaged them straight away, and I'm like, I am strongly considering this editing position because I've just done so much editing in the last 3 years, and I really enjoy it. And maybe this is, you know, a really good opportunity to take it seriously and really give it a go. And then, yeah, I was like, do you want a resume? They're like, no. They were like, you're all good. We're going to offer you the assistant editor role. And then I took that. And then during production, and then, you know, about 2 weeks ago, they said to me, we're going to officially offer you the editor role with us. And so that's now been a big step where I'm just like, I've got a film I'm working on. I've got the wrestling passion stuff. I've got the teaching as well that kind of keeps the bills paid when these can get a bit hectic, and, you know, I end up doing extra hours that don't pay and so much. And yeah, and so that's why it's so crazy. There's so much work. There's, you know, cutting a feature is unbelievably tricky, especially because I've never done it before. I've worked with a lot of media before. You know, the Velocities doco was, 2 full hard drives, and Jax has, Jax has RAID drives of content, in terms of organizing it and keeping that. I've done that before. I've just never worked with such a big story that isn't mine either. It's
Yep.
like I'm not, oh, this is my promo that I'm doing with a wrestler, and this is their story that they've let me know. I'm working under people, and quite a lot of people that have opinions on the tale, and their input's so valuable to learn from, because they know what something should be when I'm trying to do it and it's not working, and having another person go, this scene's not working, I think it's too slow, we need to speed this up, we're losing a part of this particular emotion because we're not showing this person's face. It's like all of these things. I'm learning so much from that to then take back to wrestling. It's like,
Yep.
I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we get even better from here as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it good to have all those sort of different elements of life at the moment sort of feeding back into each other and elevating all the different parts of what you're doing?
Absolutely, it is. It's so fluid. That's the thing, is everything's so full circle. And like, I actually found out the other day that the executive producer on this film that I'm working on, I was on set with him, and he just started chatting with me, and he's like, because he'd seen basically my application that I had given for the film, even though I didn't give a resume. I gave like a bit of a, here's something for the EPs to know that I am actually working. And the executive producer had seen that I had done wrestling stuff, and he was talking to me on set, and he's like, I came to like some wrestling show in Max Watts or something in the EQ, and I'm like, get out of town.
Yep, that
Yeah,
was
I'm
your
like,
show.
yeah. He's like, you work at like wrestling or something? I'm like, yeah, that's the one that I work for. He's like, oh yeah, it's so good. He's like, wow. And then he just talked about it. I was like, this is, again, full circle moments, everything. And so then from that, they understand, it's a big job, but they understand that I need to take time to do a wrestling show, and I'm not going to ask for it all the time. If there is a Saturday that I have to do a wrestling show, I have to do the wrestling show. There's no other option. If I have to do promos, I can shift the editing time to a separate day. They're really understanding of that. The film school knows the same thing. They are completely on top of, they want people to do well in film. They want people to go out and work. So when it comes to editing days, when it comes to wrestling days, and that's a passion project, like, it's, everything just is so fluid with each other. I'm so thankful. It's not this designated 9 to 5. It's so loose, which could also be a bit of a brain melt. But yeah, I'm very,
But that's
very, very fortunate.
that's good that they're all sort of understanding and know you need to be flexible with that sort of stuff.
Of course.
In the sort of shorter term, what else is on the horizon for yourself in 2022?
Gee whiz, that's a great question. In terms of projects, or like my life
Yeah,
as a
overall,
person?
like obviously you got
Overall.
to finish this movie, I guess, is the top
Yeah,
priority.
yeah. Well, because they got, that'll be my year, I think. Because a couple of the jobs are popping up, and I'm just like, I do not have the time with these three. I'm settled. I'm content. I can really challenge myself. I'm really challenging myself in the wrestling and especially the film. I don't need to add an additional crazy talent challenge on top of myself. I can do like one little day jobs and things, but
Yeah,
I
you also
can't
need to
take
still
on.
have a life.
Yeah, I also need to see my girlfriend. Yeah, I mean, she's a bit of a film widow at times when it comes to the big weeks where I just don't see her, or I'll edit in the room with her, and we'll barely have a conversation because I'm just there and she's there, and we're kind of coexisting at times because of how crazy it can get. So I am really trying to basically make sure that I can, be available and have a life, and I'm trying to fit a family thing into this weekend as well, and the crazy weekend of streams and everything. It's like I've just not seen my family in 2 years, some of them, and it's just like I need to tackle that a bit more, because it can get out of hand really quickly.
Mhm.
I guess I am someone who says yes to probably too many things at times, and it can become quite detrimental to my your health and to your social life. But yeah, this year coming up, it's going to be that film. Hitting these big goals with the Metro shows as well. Really expanding that. We're wanting to do a bit more outsourcing with PWA Studios as well. That's sort of what we are now, in terms of having a subsection of PWA that is our production team, that is, we've got every part of the live stream now because we do it all ourselves. We can now do the back end ourselves, like I was saying before. So we can actually outsource to other places that are wanting to live stream because we have all the equipment to do so. And that's, doing more of that sort of stuff and building that is something that we're wanting to do. Because I think there's a common misconception. A lot of people, most people seem to know now, but a lot of people early on thought that it was the OVO team coming in, and then when we switched to Fight TV, it was the Fight TV team coming in. I'm like, it's been us the whole time.
Yeah, they're just a platform hosting the content.
Yeah, which makes us so marketable is because we don't require anything. Where we've managed to build something, and make something from it. Wrestling promos, of course. I've got we've got a little insider goss on a Big Fudge promo that's coming up. That's probably by the time you air this, it probably will be out. Should be interesting. Should probably also be overwhelming. It's going to certainly be a ride. Yeah, it's going to certainly be a ride by the end of it. At least we're not going to nearly get shot at by the AFP this time and go to Canberra or whatever the fuck we did last time. Yeah, it's been a hot second since I've done a promo with Big Fudge, so I'm looking forward to that. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming up for this Metro show, I think. So that's sort of the near future is managing those ones, and from there, who knows? A couple of holidays. I might try and fill in a few holidays in there. Get some sleep. I might plan some sleep. What do you reckon? That's probably a good idea.
I think some sleep would be a good idea after these Metro shows and things like that. So finally, where's the best place for people to support you and track this creative journey moving forward?
I would probably say my Instagram. That's a new thing for me. I'm a bit lazy with it, to be honest, but when I get a hot second, I don't have the time. I'm really bad like that. I make things and then they happen and I move on to the next thing. Jax is the same as well. He's like, on to the next one. The moment that we've hit full time on a show, we don't live really in that much anymore. With the promos especially, I get them out and I'm on to the next one. But when I do get a second, I put it on my Instagram, which is Ben Anderson Films, because I think my name is unfortunately incredibly generic, so I thought I'd put a film related thing at the end of it. I'm not a production company or anything, it's just me with films at the end of my name. That's a good place to find me. I do a little bit on Twitter. I am also quite lazy with the Twitters. I also did start a YouTube channel, but I haven't really had anything to put there. Which is also Ben Anderson Films. So if you're really, really, really desperate to be on the buzzer for when something goes there, go for it. You're more than welcome, but I would say my Instagram's the main place.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, and good luck with everything, and I will catch you at the Metro.
Oh, you will. Thank you for having me so much. I really appreciate it.